If you want to see the difference between an old comic I made, like AK, and some of the newest ones, I'm gonna show you. AK had a ton of issues being the first comic I made. The story was long, convoluted, and requires people to pay too much attention to the little details in it. That's me summarizing the comic to a T. As I got older and became more collected, I slowly got better and better at compiling the stories, details, and of course, characters. Let me start this review of Tori Metalion by talking about the creation of it. In AK, I liked the bird characters I wrote for, and I liked making the backstories and personalities. I decided to make a comic based on the birds as main characters. The intent was supposed to be educational, talking about different types of birds. The comic would eventually be Yasei no Kachiku, or Domesticated Wild. As soon as I finished the comic, I immediately realized I went too far away from the original intent of the comic. Without talking too much about the details, I'm just gonna say it was filled with very dark humor, and it's honestly an unfair and mean-spirited comic. I wanted to redeem myself by making a short 4-chapter comic called Tori Metalion. The premise would be that 3 birds lost parts of themselves, got mechanical replacements, and their character development would evolve over the course of the short comic from there. It'd be one of my mature comics, containing elements of Domesticated Wild without any of the unfair and mean humor from it. The pattern of the characters' names would be 3 syllables: Chikara, meaning strength, Sakudo, meaning speed, and Fukusha, being a shortened version of the word Fukushaki, meaning copier. A red eagle with a mechanical torso would be Chikara, a yellow emu with a mechanical leg would be Sakudo, and finally a green parrot with a mechanical wing would be Fukusha. They'd be firefighters saving people with their mechanical attachments and learning to embrace living with them. A simple short story. Let's see how the 4 chapters went. Taken starts with Chikara evading hunters. Hunters whom are implied to be poacher villains from Domesticated Wild. They chuck him against a tree branch, leaving him impaled until someone reaches out to him. About these hunters, I decided to not have them be mentioned by Chikara or in the comic itself, because I didn't want the comic to take place in the same universe as Domestic Wild, but with the sadistic humor on display. Later on, I'd retcon this to just be Chikara's forest lit ablaze, possibly from a forest fire, and being near blinded by the smoke, impaling himself on the tree branch by accident. You know, because that actually makes sense. Sakudo gets caught in a desert landslide and gets his leg smashed by a falling rock. Fukusha is the only one that's a domesticated animal. He is in his caretaker's house and is shown to act just like a normal parrot. He has the ability to talk and interact better than most normal parrots. His story is the most emotional as a fire starts in his house, possibly a gas leak, and he searches through the rubble for his owners only to lose his wing to some of it. He powers through, breaks the rubble, trapping his caretakers, and ends up saving them. Replaced starts with the birds waking up in a strange room with mechanical attachments. Fukusha's owners explain what's going on. They replace their missing parts and want to train them to use the mechanical parts to their advantage so they can fight fires. Of course, the 3 don't want to and don't believe they can do this, but once they're given a rundown of the arsenal and gear they use to implement their suits, they go on their first mission. Before we go to the next chapter, let's explain the arsenal and gears and their abilities. Windblower. This is used to fan out smoke in a building. It's strong, but heavy. I actually based it on the extinguishers from Exceed Draft, a Japanese rescue show from the 90s. Extinguisher. It's wearable around the arm, and turns any type of oxygen, albeit clean or dirty, into an extinguishable, is that even a word? Substance. I also based it on the gear from Exceed Draft. Drive Buster. It shines different lasers depending on the types of drives you put into it. Even though there's 3 drives made for the gun, only 2 are ever used. The 2 drives are Vulcan and Gum. Vulcan is standard and helps the gun shoot a strong laser beam, while Gum is more tactical, only ever used for stopping escaping criminals and vehicles. If I ever had the characters use Magnum, it'd cause a huge explosion. This is based on the largest heck cannon from Exceed Draft, which does the exact same thing. Pecker, a staff that lets any bird fly with it once it's unfolded, like Aang's staff from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Sadly, like the Magnum Drive, the characters never had a chance to properly use it. Tori Truck. It contains not only all the gear I just mentioned, but also functions as a fire truck. Implementation Gun. In the Tori Truck, there are 3 of these, and a keyhole for each of them. Once used, the truck teleports the suits to the birds through implementation. The birds won't be able to transform without not only these guns, but the Tori Truck. Baby Steps is actually a double meaning, because it's not just about TM going on their first mission. That mission is them saving a kidnapped baby and returning it to its parents. Chikara uses the gear to destroy the rubble, while Sakudo uses his mechanical leg to help him move faster, saving some people trapped in the burning building. Meanwhile, Fukusha sneaks around the criminals' hideouts as one of them, trying to find the baby. He then drops the act and gun drives the 3 criminals protecting the kidnapper. The kidnapper manages to get in his van, but Fukusha and Sakudo manage to use the stretchiness of their mechanical limbs to catch the truck, save the baby, and arrest the kidnapper, along with the other criminals involved. Chikara, while proud of the 2, decides to leave as he still doesn't believe he's into this superhero stuff. At the end of the chapter, Fukusha and Sakudo realize that Chikara's left. Leadership is when the characters finally reach an understanding. This chapter starts with Sakudo being told that the birds have tracking devices in their suits, allowing them to find Chikara. Apparently, Chikara's forest burned down during the firefighting, with the implication being that he tried to go back to his nest. Fukusha tries to motivate him to be a firefighter since he believes everyone lost limbs in the fire, with Sakudo telling him otherwise, and not to compare woes. Fukusha is labeled mature by Chikara, which is nice, and is given a chance to drive the Tori truck to the next fire. After they put that fire out, Fukusha is able to see a gas leak from afar and put it out. When asked how he did so, he responds, "Searcher scope." Fun fact, this is actually an ability that Space Chef Gavan uses to find invisible enemies. After their job is done, they drive off to their next mission. That's where the original 4-chapter story ends, at least for a while, because I saw potential with the story and wanted it to continue for a little while longer. I wrote 5 more chapters, one of which was a 2-page spread, allowing for more story and action. The problem with me writing these characters long after I finished the first 4 was, well, I gave my sketchbook that I wrote the first chapters in to my sister, my oldest sister in fact. This means that I needed to use another sketchbook that was easily accessible, and luckily I have many of them. The problem with that sketchbook was it was thinner than the last one, and it really shows once you actually hold the comic. This is the only time I did this, so don't worry, this is the only unsatisfying part of the comics. About those last 5 chapters, however, Burning Heart focuses on Chikara. There's criminals planning a bombing and trying to flee the scene. Fukusha starts strong as he apologetically bursts through the door. Sakudo blitzes through 2 criminals with the turbo unit ability, then Chikara uses a beam through his mechanical torso and temporarily blinds them. Fukusha finds one of 3 bombs on the building. while Sakudo and Chikara use the searcher scope to locate the other two. Before they could get to them, however, a cybernetic criminal tries to pack heat, and Fukusha saves him. Everyone uses Turbo Unit to quickly find and disable the bombs, and Fate and Exhaustion. Velocity focuses on Sakudo. A robbery is happening. While the three of them gum drive the two criminals and stop them, Sakudo goes after the escaping criminal and catches him. Yeah, just like that. Xerox focuses on Fukusha. Criminals are making a machine that will scan TM's data. The reason for this is unknown, but this really doesn't matter anyway as Fukusha stops them. He used this ability again just to get close enough to stop the criminals. He even apologizes twice for doing so. The others arrive just in time to take the criminals down and gum drive them, unaware that Fukusha was within range. Unfortunately, he is only disappointed that he couldn't join in. When Chikara asks about him being so apologetic towards criminals, Fukusha says that he just takes pity on them. Lifebird has TM test out the titular weapon. It's based on a similar weapon from QQ Sentai Go-Go 5 and functions almost similarly. It's an upgraded and more powerful version of the Jaws of Life, just with a bird motif. It requires not only all the arsenal to be usable, but a 30-minute charge-up period before it can be used again. The birds go through the usual routine until Sakudo sees a missile headed towards them. Even though they didn't take the full force of the explosion, they do end up powering down for the first time. Which is a horrible position for them to be in, considering they can't get to the truck in time to transform again. But results is quite literally the longest minute TM has ever had. And no, I'm not talking about Fukusha's mechanical wings only switching sides during this minute. That was weird. They are pummeled by a buffed up robot until the Lifebird charges up. Chikara uses it on the robot, destroying it, then collapses from exhaustion, and I don't blame him. Blackhawk is the last chapter in Volume 1, and it focuses on what was supposed to be a prototype Tori Metalion, a military that's slow but packs away more heat. The leader, by the way, is very arrogant and egotistical. He believes TM is the inferior team with their 3 soldiers and Blackhawk's 500. He does destroy the factory, building more versions of that one robot that assaulted them, so at least that's one good quality to him. At the end, Blackhawk plans to show that his team is better than theirs. If I had one flaw when writing this character, it's that I wish I could have done more with him. In Volume 2, he only has one more appearance. That's Volume 1, and it's a good start to a potentially good comic series. But before we get to Volume 2, we need to take a peek at the story in between. Next time, we'll see an extended version of the original story, along with an unexpected arrival. Golden Phoenix Zack. Look forward to it.